Hello, everyone. How are we?
Well, thank you.
Good, thank you.
How's everybody's week been?
Good.
Good. Anything strange or exciting happen?
Finished my anatomy and physiology unit for my personal trainer course.
Oh, wow. Very good. Excellent.
Been hanging over my head for a little longer than it should have done, so I'm kind of relieved.
And Hayley, you're turning your camera off to eat your dinner. And you're off to the gym after this. Well done.
Check if the device is on your home Wi-Fi network.
Brilliant. Does anybody have any wins to share or any setbacks that they've experienced in the last week? I know January, wasn't it? Mondays, one of the toughest days of the year. And it was cold as well, which didn't particularly help.
Not a big win, but I've had poor motivation since before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some information.
And I put it into operation, and I've been to the gym now and started getting back online. So not a massive win, but a win.
That's excellent. Yeah. Well done, Danny. That's brilliant. And how are you getting on in the gym so far?
Again, started to not enjoy it just before Christmas, but no, I actually enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well done. That is a win. That's excellent.
Yes, again.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Not as good as you, Val.
I had a gym incident this week. A piece of gym equipment actually fell on me. It hadn't been put away right, and I thought I'd broken my finger, but thankfully, I've got full movement back in it today. But it's got a very funny colour. But it's in the accident book. They've been told about it, so hopefully it won't happen to anybody else. But I'm so relieved it didn't hit my head, because I was laid on a bench doing a bench press and it just came tumbling down on top of me. So it was a lucky escape, and all I've got is, I say,
lucky escape for you and the gym by the sounds of it.
A black finger.
Yeah, but even still, that's not ideal. So it's all right, just bruised. And yeah. Ah, sure, look, these things happen anyway. I know, but mind yourself. That's nasty. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started on this evening's topic. And our topic for this evening is going to be all things social anxiety. Just going to share my slides here for a second. Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so starting off again, as usual, into the chat box. So if everyone can put their microphones on mute, just so we don't have any feedback, and we'll be into the chat box for the first part of our discussion. So into the chat box, what comes to mind when you hear the term social anxiety? Or what do you visualize, or what do you think of when you hear the term social anxiety? So Dawn is saying dread. Oh, very good. Yeah, so we might dread an upcoming social occasion, for example. Yeah, excellent. And Hayley, worrying about being, oh, sorry, my comment's gone. Worrying about being in new situations. Yeah, very good. And particularly social situations maybe that we haven't been in before, with people we don't know, could be people we know. Yeah, very good. Jane is saying don't want to go out. Yeah, because it can become very isolating. Excellent. Yeah. And Val is saying a fear of meeting new people. Yeah. And that can then prevent us from going out and trying new things, starting a new class, starting a new hobby. Yeah, very good. And Jane is saying avoidance. Yeah, very good. So when we look at all the ways in which we try to cope or we try to manage our social anxiety, oftentimes avoidance, yeah, absolutely is what can happen. And we've got Anna saying meeting strangers. Oh, very good. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, particularly if it's people that maybe we don't know, maybe we're, you know, not very familiar with them, not really sure what we're going to talk about and things like that. Yeah, very good. And Dawn is saying avoidance. Yeah, excellent. Because again, oftentimes, how do we cope with our social anxiety? Well, we just avoid the social situation. But as we're going to see, there's going to be all sorts of consequences to that. Yeah. And Caroline saying parties. Yeah, excellent. Very good. Very kind of common event that triggers social anxiety for people. Yeah. And Denny is saying the stress of not feeling wanted. Oh, very good. Yes. Because at the heart of social anxiety is essentially judgment and a fear of rejection or a fear of isolation and things like that. Yeah, very good. And again, very much the spotlight is on us. So we're very much in our own heads when we're in this social situation, and we're assuming that we know what everybody is thinking and they're all thinking something bad about us. They don't want us to be here. Yeah, very good. And Hannah is saying shyness. Yeah, very good. So oftentimes it can be that if we're struggling to manage our social anxiety, for example, we might go to the party, we might go to whatever event it is, but maybe we say, well, I won't say anything and I won't get involved in anything. I won't get involved in conversation. I'll just kind of hang back here and maybe find somebody else who's kind of hanging back here, and we can both hang back here for the rest of the night. Yeah, very good. And Dawn is saying TM last year. Ah, very good. Yes. So again, because it's different when you meet people in real life, isn't it? In real life, yeah. But you know what I mean, offline. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And interacting with people is slightly different in person. Now, again, we interact with people quite similar ways online, but when the person is standing there in front of you, yeah, you might feel anxious. Yeah, good example, Dawn. And Maria is saying a fear of public interaction. Oh, very good. Yeah, excellent. So any sort of a situation where there are other people there, and again, we're worried about how's this interaction going to go? You know, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to do the wrong thing? What are people thinking of me? Yeah, very good. So we don't tend to experience social anxiety sitting at home by ourselves unless we're thinking about something that's up and coming. But when we're in the midst of it, we tend to find ourselves in some sort of situations where there are other people. And again, there's a chance that other people might be judging us. So that's going to be a key part of it. And we've got Val is saying isolation. Yeah, very good. And that's unfortunately what happens when our social anxiety continues to creep up and we tend to isolate ourselves more. And then the more that we isolate ourselves, the more the social anxiety continues to creep. And we talk about these vicious cycles that we end up in. And unfortunately, this is one of those vicious cycles that we tend to get stuck in. And when it comes to anxiety and it comes to stress, isolation is probably the worst thing that we could do for ourselves. We are social creatures. We are designed to connect with other people. We are designed to be supported and soothed by other people, and locking ourselves away from the world actually doesn't do much for us. And Deborah, your camera is not working. Oh, hopefully it'll come on soon. No problem, no worries. And Dawn is saying overthinking as well. Oh yeah, very good. So you might be thinking, okay, there's some sort of an event coming up, or maybe I have to do a presentation, or I'm going to start this new class at the gym. Maybe I'm joining the gym for the first time and I've got to go in, and it's who's going to be there and what are they going to be thinking, and what if I don't know what to do, and what if people think, oh, she's doing the wrong thing, or right. And again, way overthinking. Yes, very good. Excellent examples there. Well done, everybody. Open to the chat. And sometimes interacting online can be difficult. Yes, Anne, as your interpretation of what someone has written can cause anxiety too. Yeah, and that's one of the downsides of digital communication, is that oftentimes the tone is misunderstood, or it's written in some way that maybe you could give that same paragraph to 3 people and they'd all interpret it in a different way. Yeah, so sometimes it's, oh, has someone interpreted me, misinterpreted me, or, oh, is that person being critical of me, or are they judging me, or is that just how I'm construing it? Yeah, absolutely, very good. And then there's all sorts of problems with, particularly anonymous online communication when people are trolling and things like that. And Deborah, I think you bottle things up and just want to hide away, whereas when you actually open up and talk to people about how you're feeling, it really does help. Yeah, excellent. And again, that's sort of our instinct is, oh, I'll just lock myself away and I'll just pretend it's not happening and I'll just avoid whatever it is that's causing me anxiety. But unfortunately, that is the solution that causes us more problems. And eventually, you might get away with it for a while, but eventually it's going to catch us. Yeah, very good. Well done. Okay, so just in terms of, again, remembering overall anxiety, right? So apprehension or excessive fear about real or imagined circumstances. So we are a group of unique beings on this planet. in that we are the only species that are able to becoming anxious about things that aren't actually happening, that might happen. So tigers don't sit around and worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen in 2 months' time, or elephants or any other of those creatures. What they need is, in order to feel anxious and to feel fear, they need some sort of concrete evidence that something's going to happen. So they need to be able to hear a threat. They need to be able to see a threat. They need to be able to smell a threat. They need actual evidence that there's a threat somewhere in the environment, right? For them to feel anxiety or for them to feel fear. As humans, we're quite unique in that, well, we can think ahead, which is great. I mean, what would we do if we couldn't think ahead? We wouldn't set goals. We wouldn't make plans. We wouldn't do all of these things, right? But I suppose there's a sweet spot. Now, when we go outside the sweet spot and it starts to become problematic is when it starts to become anxiety. Yeah. And welcome, Sadie. Good to see you. And Andrea is here as well. And Cheryl, you're all welcome. We're talking about social anxiety this evening. So again, remember that a lot of our anxiety is not a response to the direct threat. It's not that threat is sitting right in front of us. Oftentimes, it's us imagining the fear. It's us imagining the threat. It's us imagining, I'm going to go to this party, or I'm going to go to this gym class on Saturday and nobody's going to talk to me, or I'm going to be on my own. People are going to be judging me. People are going to be laughing at me. I'm not going to have anything interesting to contribute. La, da, 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 da. There's no evidence for any of this, but we've gone into the future and started to predict what might happen. And we're not visualizing it. Oh God, it's going to go great. You know, I'm going to try this new skill. Maybe I'll make new friends. It's always, oh, this might not go well. And Ingrid is here as well. Hello, Ingrid. Okay, so at the heart of anxiety, we're talking about worry. Okay, and what happens is that it becomes excessive in terms of certain situations. So anxiety can show itself in all parts of our lives. So we might be thinking about kind of generalized anxiety, or we might feel more anxious in particular scenarios, such as in social situations. And that's where social anxiety comes from. So if you tend to feel most anxious in situations where there will be other people there, right, chances are that, and again, everybody experiences social anxiety, right? We think about it on a continuum, but if you tend to have higher levels of social anxiety or more worry around people, that's when we want to be able to manage it. Because when it becomes excessive, it's unproductive. It's okay to say, I'm going to this gym class tonight, and it's the first time I've been there, and I'm not going to know anybody. And so I do want to make a good impression. So I'll make sure that I talk to at least one person, or I say to someone, geez, you're doing a great job there, or whatever it is. That's good. That's good anxiety. We're thinking ahead, right? We're making a plan. We don't want to go in and say, well, I'm not going to talk to anybody and I'm going to turn my back to everybody. And I'm, you know, because that's probably not going to help us to win friends and influence people. So a certain level of anxiety in social situations is good because it helps us to behave in ways that are pro-social. But it's when it goes up the extreme end and we've got excessive worry, that's when it starts to cause us problems, right? Because what we start to do is we start to shut down and we start to avoid, right? And then we know we've got also problems then. Social anxiety, we've got fear anxiety about social situations where possible scrutiny by others. And that is at the heart of social anxiety. It's not the presentation itself. It's not the party itself. It's not the gym class itself. It's the scrutiny from other people that we fear. And that's the key. And that's what causes us the distress and the discomfort, right? Ingrid, what about hypervigilance? Yeah, and we can be more hypervigilant, particularly if we are experiencing social anxiety and our fight or flight is kind of triggered and we're kind of looking out for things. And when we're in that kind of state where we're already, okay, is there a threat here? We do become hypervigilant and we start to look for threats that mightn't necessarily be there and things like that. Absolutely, it's all interconnected. See a lot of hypervigilance, particularly with more generalized anxiety, where we tend to worry about anything and everything. And particularly if your fight or flight is switched on for a lot of the time, you know, you might startle easily and things like that. And that's kind of associated with the hypervigilance. But yeah, absolutely, it is a part of it. And even just thinking about, you go to a party, and for most people, you might be just chatting away to somebody. But if we're in a situation with social anxiety, we're thinking about everything. What did I say? How did I say it? Is this person bored? Does this person want to leave the conversation? How am I looking? Am I blushing? Do I look stupid right now? right? That's very hypervigilant because we're aware of everything that's going on, right? And not in a good way. So we're worried that we're going to be negatively evaluated. I mean, if we're being fearful of being negatively evaluated, what kind of fears do you think we might have there? Into the chat box. What kind of evaluations, negative evaluations, do you think we might be fearful of? In any sort of a social, so we're talking about social situations, right? So what sort of negative evaluations do you think that we might fear? And again, this is why social situations, right? It doesn't have to be, you know, a specific social situation. They can happen in any social situation. We can feel this fear. We're into the chat box, which is great. So appearance, Val, yeah, very good. And sorry, I have to scroll up here. Jane is saying she's not very interesting. Very good. Yeah. Ingrid, boring, fat, dull. Yeah, very good. You're not good. Oh, sorry, Sadie, you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be here. Yeah. Appearance, yeah, very good. And Haley being judged, feeling that they think I shouldn't be here. Yeah, there's kind of a theme here, isn't it? I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. Yeah. And Cheryl, how we dress, very good. Yeah. And Denny being judged about what we're wearing. Oh, very good. Yeah. And according to, am I dressed according to my age? Okay. So will people say, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that or this or, okay, very good. Yeah. Andrea, no one will talk to me. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be left on my own. What's that going to be like? Yeah. And Maria, I might think that my input is silly. Yeah. So if nothing intelligent to contribute or nothing particularly interesting or, yeah, very good. Might be boring. Yeah. And Donna's saying, I don't fit in. Yeah, very good. Whatever that means. But yeah, it is. Is there a code? Is there a culture? And I'm not quite hitting it. Yeah, very good. Val, I'm not equal to them. Oh, very good. Yeah, so these people for some reason are above me. And again, we're all equal as humans, but we determine that. We give people an unequal value. It's not written down anywhere. And Cheryl says, judge the social status. Oh, very good. Yeah, excellent. So you can see we can have lots of different fears. And we tend to kind of fear the same scrutiny. And our fear of scrutiny, so that negative evaluation that we fear the most probably tells us something about ourselves, probably something that we need to, you know, kind of think about from a mental health perspective. Because oftentimes we're worried about things that we're very hard on ourselves about and on things that people would never judge us in the way that we judge ourselves about. So it's worth kind of having a think about and saying, where has this come from? Where does this fear come from? Caroline is saying they won't understand my humor. Oh, very good. Yeah, so I'll land a joke, but nobody will laugh. Yeah, very good. And my opinions aren't worthy. Again, kind of going back to that worth as well, Danny. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So the situations are avoided, right? Because we know avoidance is generally the number one way of managing anxiety. Or you go and it's really hard. You're really stressed. You're really anxious and you're not having a particularly good time. And remember, if we are at the party and we're feeling very anxious or very fearful, we are not present. We are not listening to the other people's conversations. We're not being present for our friends or our family because we're so up in our heads, right? And worrying about things that aren't actually happening. But again, it makes it very, very difficult to be present, right? And remember that the fear, the anxiety is out of proportion to actual threat. Now, as we've talked about previously, the anxiety in social situations makes sense because back in the caveman days, we needed people to survive. You had to have your tribe. You had to have your community. You just literally would not have survived as a lone wolf, right? Now, society has moved on and we don't depend on other people in the same way that we do. That's not to say we don't need other people. Of course we do. But the reality is that there's lots of people out there. There's lots of ways to meet people. So if you went to a particular, I don't know, hobby and you didn't get on with the people there or they rejected you, it's not the end of the world. You can go and you can find a new class and find a new group of people you gel with, people who, you know, understand you and you understand them. But oftentimes we kind of think, oh, rejection will be the end of the world. When in reality, we can actually manage it quite well. And so stressed, all you want to do is go home. Yeah. And who's having a good time then? Nobody's having a good time, right? If we're so stressed. So we want to be thinking about being able to manage it, right? And these are some of the kind of common situations or common scenarios in which you're likely to experience social anxiety. So you've got public speaking, you've got parties, meetings, authority figures, so bosses, for example, eating or drinking in public is another one, working or writing while being observed, or you could be doing anything as part of a craft or a job or anything like that where people are watching you. And then telephone calls. And I suppose telephone calls, we've found ways around it because now we've got email and we've got texting and we've got all of these different things. And certainly there seems to be a lot of, big companies who are moving away from, even if you wanted to call them on the phone, you couldn't because they don't give you a number. They'll only take emails or whatever. So that one, not so much. But in those situations where you do have to make a phone call, you would experience anxiety there. Again, it's not to say you're going to experience anxiety in all these situations. And again, it's normal to feel a little bit, right? Nobody skips into public speaking and goes, great. Public speaking, my favorite, can't wait. For the most part, we're going to feel a bit anxious. And the same if we're going to a party for the first time or a meeting or things like that. But again, it's just thinking about where is my anxiety? Is it a little bit? And I can manage it. It's not going to affect how much I enjoy myself or whether I go or not, or is it way up the other end of the scale? Jane, my professional persona is pretty confident, yeah. And public speaking, meetings, etc. I get nervous, but I handle it very good, yeah. And it's parties and social situations that have me tied in knots. Oh, very good, yeah. And again, bring some of that professional persona into your parties and your social situations, because you've got the approach. But again, it's kind of like, oh, I have great confidence in who I am as a professional. I don't have as much confidence in who I am as a person. And again, they're all interconnected. We are all the one person. So our confidence transfers into all our different areas. So we want to take that persona, think about the personas, those areas in which you are really confident, and apply that to the rest of your life. And if you don't have those areas, well, you got to work on it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So some of the main fears: I will behave in a socially unacceptable manner. I'll tell a joke and nobody will laugh, right? For example. And then as a result, this will lead to rejection, loss of worth or status, and failure to achieve important personal goals. So rather than saying, well, rejection won't be particularly fun, but you know what, I'll move on and I'll get on with the rest of my life, it's very much centered around a big, big threat. This is going to be terrible, and I'm not going to be able to recover from this. Hayley, eating in public, my nightmare. Yeah, very good. And feel they're looking at what is on my plate and saying, I can see why she is overweight, etc. Oh, Hayley, that's very harsh. And even worse is a buffet scenario. But it's a really good example that Hayley is giving about how we're very good at putting thoughts into other people's heads. And again, remember, everybody is more concerned about themselves. They're thinking about their day. They're thinking about their goals. They're thinking about their problems. They're not sitting around worrying about other people, right? But again, we can be very good at making the assumption. We can read minds and we can plant. We go through the mental gymnastics. It takes a lot of mental gymnastics to put another thought into another human's head when we've no idea what's going on in somebody else's head. But you can imagine how distressing that is, right? And we've no evidence. There's nothing to say that, but we have decided that because of our own judgment of ourselves. And that's what we often do, is we take the judgment of ourselves and we assume everybody else is judging us in the same way. They're not. And even if they are, right, is it the end of the world? No. Because if we can get to a place where we value ourselves and we believe in ourselves and we know our friends and our family and the people who matter, they like us, that's the main thing. Are people out there at parties, at work meetings, and all these sort of scenarios, are there going to be people who don't like us? Yeah. Are there going to be people who judge us? Yeah. No, there's nothing we can do about that. Let people have their thoughts. Let people do their thing, and spend time worrying about the people who actually, like us and value us and want to spend time with us, and being a good friend or a good partner or a good parent or a good whatever it is that we're striving to be. That's far more important than worrying about people who are not important. Again, if you're in the gym and you're worrying about what are other people thinking, I mean, who are these people? And why do you value their opinion so much, right? They're just randomers in the gym. Okay. And again, remember, they're worrying about their own thing. They're worrying about their own sets. They're worrying about their own goals. And some of the thoughts, again, that we might have, what I say sounds stupid, I'm boring. I know you all gave me good examples earlier on. I'll make a fool of myself, particularly if we're afraid of trying something new. They will see or know that I'm anxious. Again, we're putting thoughts in other people's heads. I'll blush or shake or forget my words. So again, often another common feature of social anxiety is we switch the spotlight onto ourselves. So we're having a conversation with somebody and we're thinking, am I blushing? Am I shaking? Am I going to forget what I'm saying? Are they going to notice that I'm anxious? All of this stuff. And again, if you're in that place and you're going through all of these worries, you have no idea what the other person is talking about. And then the other person is saying, they don't seem very interested in what I'm saying. They're definitely not listening to me. This person doesn't seem to like me. And maybe I'll just exit this conversation. When actually, that's not what's going on at all. All we're doing is we're just locked up in our own fear, in our own anxiety. And then some of the behaviors, as we talked about, and you all hit it on the spot, is avoidance. So avoidance is going to be a big one. Danny, getting tongue-tied and end up saying something and it makes no sense even to me. Oh, very good. Yeah. And again, it's the judgment of, they're going to say, oh, and she just, what's she talking about? What's she? And again, after you've got tongue-tied, people might notice it for about 5 seconds and then they've just moved on with the rest of their day. But we might be still thinking about it 5 days later. Geez, do you remember I had that conversation? I got totally tongue-tied. No one's still thinking about that. 5 seconds later, they've moved on with the rest of our lives. And what are we doing? We're ruminating on it. We're torturing ourselves thinking about it. Right. And that's it. We're torturing ourselves. We're causing ourselves distress. We're making ourselves anxious. We're worrying ourselves. We're keeping ourselves up at night. None of this stuff is going to be good for us. So avoidance tends to be the big one. Sorry, I've also got a comment from Deborah. This will shock people, but I ended up non-stop chattering, but sometimes it's down to nerves. Yeah, very good. And that's it. So it might be a case of I'll just stop talk non-stop. And then people don't have, because if we're chatting, they don't have a chance to, sit down and think about, or what am I saying, or what am I doing, or yeah. And absolutely, and down to nerves. Very good. Yeah. And Ingrid saying drinking, yeah, that's a big one. And when we see, high levels of social anxiety, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes we also see issues with alcohol as well. Because what we know is that people tend to use alcohol as a way of self-medicating. And the problem with that is that it doesn't work. So when you actually go and you hook people up to, and Jane was talking about physiology, when you look at all the what's happening physiologically in your body when you consume alcohol, oh, it's going to reduce my anxiety, oh, it's going to reduce my heart rate. It doesn't do any of that. We think it's a bit of a placebo effect. We think that the alcohol is helping us to manage those symptoms of anxiety. Now, I'm not saying it can't give us a bit of Dutch courage and things like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But fundamentally, as a coping mechanism, alcohol doesn't work for social anxiety. We just think it does, but actually it just causes us more problems. So avoidance, the big problem with avoidance, what does it do? It prevents disconfirmation. If I go to the gym class on Monday, people might not talk to me. People might think that I shouldn't be there. So what do? I don't go. And then guess what? I'm going to continue to feed myself those lies that I don't belong there, and people are going to judge me, and people aren't going to want me to be there. Unless I actually go to the gym class and go, it wasn't bad. I had a great chat with somebody at the end, or everybody seemed very preoccupied with what they were doing. They really weren't bothered with me. Unless we actually go and do the thing, well, we're not going to be able to disconfirm it. So this is, again, how we get locked in that cycle. And so just go to the comments here. Dawn, replaying after and thinking, why did I say that? Oh, not say that. Very good. Yeah. And again, people are not going and replaying your conversation over and over again saying, why did Dawn say that? That's so bizarre. They've just moved on with their lives. But we beat ourselves up. Why did you do that? Why did you say that? Yeah, very good. And Maria, I've had to make an impromptu public presentation for which I was rightly congratulated, but couldn't remember what I said afterwards. Yeah. And very much the anxiety can kind of take over and we've no idea what's happening. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. And well done doing the impromptu public presentation. That's not an easy thing to do. Fair play to you. And then also what we're talking about there is the anticipatory and post-event thinking. We focus on the feelings and how we think we looked and behaved. And we can be very selective with retrieving our past failures and forgetting successes. I go to the party and maybe one of my jokes didn't land, and I'm going to focus on that joke now for the rest of the week. When actually I had great conversations with somebody else, and I joined on Facebook. I became Facebook friends with somebody else, or, you know, we had a great time chatting about this. But you just focus in on that one thing, that one part of a conversation, or that one thing that you did wrong. And Jane, there's situations that happened years ago that I still run through my head with shame. Yeah. And again, all you're doing is torturing yourself. We're not getting anything out of that. It's not helping us in any way. And Val, I cringe even thinking about it now. Yeah. And again, great way that we can torture ourselves. And that's our brain trying to say, oh, don't do that again. When in reality, we have to get it wrong. We have to say the wrong thing. We have to do the wrong thing, and we learn from it. And again, if we can get to a place where we value ourselves and we're continuously working on our self-esteem, you know, we're able to kind of just shrug it off and say, yeah, that probably wasn't the most sensible thing to say in that situation, but yeah, okay, I probably won't say that again. Or they didn't really seem like my kind of crew. They didn't really get my jokes. I won't go to that party again anymore. Yeah, whatever it is, something that's productive and something that's helpful. But yeah, absolutely, we can beat ourselves up for years. So lastly, our safety behaviors, right? Remember, they prevent disconfirmation, they heighten our self-focus, they also cause us, which is kind of, I suppose, a roundabout. We get trapped in that cycle. We get sweaty, we get we're trembling, we get mental blanks, as we talked about. Again, that's the anxiety. We might start talking quietly, you know, we don't want to speak up. And then as a result, what happens? Well, we start to appear withdrawn. And then it becomes that vicious cycle, because people say, oh, well, she never gets involved in our conversations. She mustn't like us, or mustn't think we're interesting enough. And then we're more likely to be isolated. And it's not because of us, but it's because of how we're behaving, again, in ways of trying to manage our anxiety, right? And the more focused that you are on how much you're sweating, or how much your mind is going blank, or what your voice sounds like, the more likely you are actually going to draw attention to all of that. Right? Whereas if we just go about our day and we just go about our conversation, right, it's far more likely to go well. So we have to remember that these behaviors actually, again, just cause us more problems. They're not actually solutions. They might reduce our anxiety temporarily, but it's very temporary. And then the anxiety comes back, and it tends to come back with a vengeance. Okay, so into the breakout rooms, and what are we talking about? We are going to talk about how social anxiety might impact on our healthy goals. So in terms of our healthy eating and our exercise, and maybe goals that you've set for yourself for 2024, how might social anxiety impact on these goals? And then we want one or two methods as to how we can manage our social anxiety. So how might social anxiety impact on our healthy goals? And we're looking for one or two tools that we might use to manage it. Okay. So let me just do the rooms here. And okay, brilliant. Okay, and away you go. Welcome back. How did we get on?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
With a good weather.
Andrea, you're on my screen. Go for it. What kind of chat did you have?
We had a great chat. So we talked about not reflecting, actually taking action.
Very good.
Was one of the biggest things. That's what.
Very good.
That's what Deborah said. Jane said taking yourself down off the ceiling and sitting yourself down and taking action.
Very good. Yeah. Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah, that coming down off the ceiling was about almost doing the empty chair conversation with yourself, and actually just taking that deep breath and say, Jane, what's the worst thing that could happen? And if that does happen, does it really matter?
Yeah.
And bringing yourself down so that you're able to actually take a breath, get out there and just do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we get so lost up in our heads and it all just becomes up here and it's so jangled, when actually if we can just bring ourselves down, center ourselves and say, what's actually happening here? Can I manage this situation? And even if the worst case scenario happens, I'll still be able to cope with it. Yeah, very good.
With the methodologies, we also mentioned the sort of the fake it till you make it kind of situation.
Yeah.
When when you're in a situation where you really do not want to speak out loud, but you're having to do so, and it gets easier. And the potential to rehearse something that, even if something's not particularly going well right now, or you've got a fear of something not going right, you try and think of the positive situations that's happened previously and concentrate on those.
Yes.
Rather than the negative things that you're thinking will happen.
Exactly.
But obviously generally doesn't.
And we can be very slow to think about all the times that it went well in the past, can't we? Yeah. It's a very good point. And like you were saying about the fake it till you make it, I think, is it Beyonce talks about her kind of on stage persona that she's
yeah, I think so.
It's a good way to do it, even just to start. Or are there, maybe there's somebody in your life that you admire and you like how they go about, maybe joining a new group or starting a new class, and say, okay, I'm going to take something from that. So I notice that they always go into the room and they'll find someone saying, hi, how are you? And then introduce yourselves. Right, well, I'm going to try that. I'll just try that when I try this new class or I go to this party. And yeah, very good. Excellent. Well done. Okay. And we'll go to another breakout group. So that was room 2. Well done, room 2. Room 3, Dawn, Hannah, Hayley, Ingrid, Denny. Anything to add in there?
I think one of the things that we said was about doing things in smaller steps.
Oh yeah,
like
nice.
maybe going part of the way.
Yeah.
And, like being outside a gym.
Yeah.
Before actually going into it and making a plan and sticking to that plan.
Yeah, that's very good. Because that's how we conquer our fears, as we take it one step at a time. If you think about it like a ladder, and at the very top of the ladder is, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my workout in the gym. And then you think about all the steps that you might take below that. And what Dawn said there, your first step might be, I'm going to go and I'm going to park outside the gym and say, right, well, here it is. And then my next step is I'm going to go into the reception and I'm going to chat to the staff and I'm going to find out about membership. And then I'm going to come back the next day and I'm going to have a look and so on and so forth. And you work your way up the ladder. But you can imagine if we just tried to get to the last step, in one go, right? That would be very overwhelming and very intimidating. So we take it, exactly as Dawn said, one step at a time up the ladder to whatever our goal is at the top. Excellent. Very good. Yeah. Brilliant. And is there another room? Room 1, was it?
Yeah, room 1.
Room 1.
I'll start, but if anybody wants to join in, they can join in. So the first question was, I'll be quick as I can, so I've got not 5 minutes. So how might social anxiety impact on healthy goals? So we looked at all the points everybody mentioned before and what you'd mentioned in your PowerPoint. So avoidance from events, activities. Some people said that basically doing having anxiety made them have migraines, or they vomited so they could avoid not going, and that being fearful, putting that excess so much pressure on yourself, making you feel physically ill,
literally making yourself sick.
So then we moved over to how we can manage it. So some of these already been said, so we might have said it in a different way. So start little in little steps and then rinse or clean and repeat. But then someone said, instead of, we can use Taylor Swift and shake it off.
I love it.
So build on positive experiences. And then Val mentioned that Mel Robbins turned fear into excitement. Instead of like seeing it fearful and being anxious, turn it into a more positive experience. Always raise your game and put your own limits on yourself. Have the courage to do it, to not be anxious and just do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at why and I can't read what I've written. Look at why and have a think about why you are anxious. So take a step back and look at why you're anxious. And then is it to do with you're fearful, or is it to do with something else? But I'll probably mess that up, Hayley. So you can go into that one. And then oh God, what I've done. Look back at when you have conquered previous anxious times and your wins, basically, and try and embed that into the situation that you're anxious now, to like overcome why you're anxious, or to help you. And then that's it. But I don't know if I've said anything. Might have missed something out.
That was excellent. Yeah, well done. And I like how you thought about it from the cognitive side of it, your thoughts. What kind of thoughts am I having before this event? And then also thinking about, and how am I behaving? And am I behaving in a way that's going to be good for me? And that's going back again to the first group when you were talking about doing that reflection. Andrea had mentioned that's very important. Kind of saying, why is it that I don't want to go? What might be going on here? What are the thoughts that I'm having? What's the worst case that situation that could happen? And then thinking about what Dawn was saying about putting steps in place. So instead of trying to think of the last step, putting other steps. And as you were saying there as well, all the times that it actually went well, the times that, I went and enjoyed myself. And even if the worst case scenario, because again, that's what we have to remember. The worst case scenario is the fear. And it's not only, okay, that particular situation might happen. I might get judged, or I might get negatively evaluated. It's how am I going to feel after it? How am I going to cope with it? What are the consequences of it? And if we can get on top of that, as Sadie was saying, then we're able to go and we're able to do whatever it is we want to do and whatever it is that we need to do. So this is where we talk a lot about, say, things like grit and resilience, because we can say, okay, I could go into this presentation and make a total mess of it, but yeah, big deal. Shake it off and I'll get on to the next one. And being able then, as part of that, to let things go and to say, right, that presentation didn't go very well, or that class didn't go very well, not to worry, I'm going to leave it behind and I'll move on to the next one. And the more that you're doing, the enemy of social anxiety, the enemy of so many aspects of mental illness is action. When we take action, when we get ourselves out of bed, when we go and to do our exercise or do our workout, when we pick up the phone, when we connect with somebody else, all of that action, enemy of mental illness. Now, I know that sounds like it's a simple solution. It's not necessarily an easy solution. But if we can get to a place where we're taking action, we're on our way. And our mental health and our well-being is going to follow that, because it just can't. Mental illness can't compete with action. Once you're taking action and you're moving forward, I'm not going to listen to this anxiety. I'm going to go and do that thing that I want to do. Or I'm not going to listen to my depression and stay in bed all day, because I want to get out and I want to go and I want to do my exercise, or I want to go to work, or I want to see my family, etc. All of that's going to be very important. Okay, so well done, everybody. We're bang on 7 o'clock, and good to see you all. And I'll see you same time, same place next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.